Thanks for joining Let's Get to Talking, presented to you by Black Gay Table Talk. I'm Kenan.
I'm Dorian.
Join us as we take you on a journey of discussion from two Black gay male perspectives.
Get ready for authentic, heartfelt, raunchy, thought-provoking, and relatable shows.
We're happy to be a part of your podcast family.
Let's get to talking.
Hey family, and thanks for joining us for another episode of Let's Get to Talking, brought to you by Black Gay Table Talk. I'm Kenan.
And I'm Dorian.
And for today's episode, it's an exciting episode for me, I'll say, and for Dorian too, I'm sure. All of us. So,
Absolutely.
Actor, activist, artist, designer, oh my gosh, educator. Is there anything he has not done? The one
he has
and
not
only-
gotten an Oscar, and he does not have an Emmy, nor a Tony. Yeah.
Not yet. But we have a divine date with Dale Madison. Dale, how are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for inviting me on your show today. I've been so excited. I was like, when am I going to get invited on Black Gay Table Talk?
Really?
Yes. I want to be invited on everybody's show. I'm greedy like that.
All right. Well, I'm glad
welcome.
we got you first then for your upcoming
you
project.
are
right?
very first to invite, and I'm so excited to be here.
So, Dale, you have I have to say, Dale's one of our living legends, y'all. He really is. He's done so much, not just in the entertainment space, but for us as Black queer people or people under the LGBTQIA umbrella. So, I'm so happy to have you with us.
It
So
is a pleasure.
let's kick it up.
I'm honored. When I hear all of those accolades, it kind of reminds me, damn, I am almost 66 years old. Yeah.
And looking
Yeah.
phenomenal.
I want to see the ID. I
Yeah,
want
my
to see
mom
the
is
ID.
96, so I'm planning on hanging out for a long time. Yeah.
Amen.
Good.
Amen. So, early life and your activism, Dale. Tell us about your early life. Can you share with us any early experiences that kind of led you to your journey or led you on this journey?
I was born in right outside of Chicago on a naval base, Great Lakes, Illinois. And my father was in the Navy, and my mother was kind of a farm girl in Virginia. I grew up basically in Tidewater, Virginia, and Baltimore. And for me, activism started really early because I tell people I remember the day very clearly when Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. And we were visiting relatives in Baltimore. And I remember running with my mom, running because the riots were going on. And I just remember running with my mom and the other relatives telling us, as long as we wrote Soul Brother on the door, that we would be safe. And I just remember that image in my mind. And then the following Sunday, everybody was fighting to get that color insert in the Sunday paper to have a picture of Martin Luther King Jr., which my mother taped on the hallway door. So as I walked down the hallway each night to my bedroom, I could see Martin Luther King Jr. And going to elementary school, or even I think it was junior high school, I remember being asked to read the I Have a Dream speech. And just remember reading that speech, you could hear a pin drop in the classroom. So it was something about King and his message and how powerful it was and how that inspired me. So he's always been like my golden spirit, I think, in terms of fighting for what I believe is right, and standing up in injustice. So it started so early for me. I started a protest in junior high school about something that was not fair to 7th or 8th graders. And we walked out of school and then we were singing We Shall Overcome in the front of William E. Waters Junior High School. I don't even remember what it was about. But it was just like, so we were always standing up for causes. So that for me is my earliest memory.
Wow. You know, I haven't shared this publicly, but when you said that, it made me think the day that he was assassinated, Martin Luther King Jr., my dad and my uncle, and I'm from Memphis originally, they were leaving work and they didn't know what had happened. So they were leaving work at one of the hospitals there, and all of a sudden it was just chaos. And they both were beaten by police officers that day. They made it home, thank God, because I'm here, you know. They made it home. But that is an experience that I guess it can stick with you, and it can create that early, itch to want to do something or be an activist, I guess.
Yeah, I remember years later when Stevie Wonder was fighting to have Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday a holiday.
Mm-hmm.
My friends and I, we caught buses from Baltimore and we marched in the snow in D.C. I just keep thinking about something. We marched in the snow in D.C. to fight for the right for his birthday. And years later, I run into Stevie Wonder at a restaurant. A girlfriend of mine who actually it had been 20 or 30 years, and we were saying, I said, Stevie Wonder always comes to this particular restaurant, and I said, wouldn't it be wild if he was there? And then we turn around and there he is, and she was one of the people who caught the bus with me. We were still friends, and she lives in Oakland, and she came down for her birthday, and we were able to turn to his people and say, could we say hello to Stevie? And we took a picture with him, and we said, yeah, we were there in the snow that day when you were singing, happy birthday, and we just wanted to just say that we both of us were there and how much it meant to us. And he said, yeah, and he quoted the day and the time, and he just started going on, and it was just such a powerful full circle experience, to be able to be inspired by King, to march for his birthday, and then to meet one of the people who actually made that birthday happen. It just kind of lets you know that when you step into the spirit of wanting to do what's right, good things happen out of that. Because it was just something as simple as, oh yeah, he comes here because it's right down the street from his radio station. He might be in here, and then he was. And then the fact that both of us were there in that particular time to share that moment with him was just, it was
Yeah.
uplifting and
Yeah.
powerful. And you said Memphis, and when I was moving from Baltimore to Los Angeles, my best friend and I, we drove across country and we stopped at the King Museum, and I got to see the balcony where he was assassinated, and then hearing his voice for the right for the workers, the bus workers, hearing his voice. We were lined up, and then we got to see the cell where he sat in and everything, and then seeing just seeing that balcony. It was just like it was emotional, and every time I tell that story, I always cry, and I don't know why, but
It takes your breath away.
it's just
It takes your breath away.
it's just just like probably my one and only time in Memphis. I just know that for me, I don't remember any much of that long drive. I know it was like 48 or 72 hours of my
Mm-hmm.
driving, him driving but that moment
Mhm.
in Memphis just was just so powerful to me, to be connected to that kind of activist, that moment,
Mhm.
to be able to see that
Mhm.
place.
It is
Wow.
powerful. It,
It
it takes your
is.
breath away.
Yeah.
I was
I
too
think every
young.
Black person needs to go there to the King Museum and see that.
Yes.
I want to know, how has being a Black gay activist shaped your identity?
Good question. What for me, it reminds you that sometimes you sacrifice relationships, and personal things, for the greater good. So
Okay.
I know that um, I've lost lovers and friends, and or people who say they're friends, over over my determination to live my life as an out gay man. So
Okay.
I came out in 1976 in the middle of my senior year in high school, and I fell in love with the most popular kid in school. He could sing, he could act. We were in Godspell together, and I was just in love with this guy. And back in those days, you know how young and hot we were always sucking on each other's necks and doing hickeys and all of that kind of mess. And I came home with hickeys on my neck, and my father said, well, what girl put hickeys on your neck? But I was just so proud and so in love, and I said, or guy. And he looked at me strangely. He walked out the door, and when he came back about 20 minutes later, he said, you have 7 days to get out of my house. And
Oh.
I just remember like my world just stopped, because I put who I was in front of any other thing. I had dreams of going to NYU, studying acting, running off with my best acting buddy, and we were just going to be stars. We were going to do all of this stuff. But in that moment, it was like college stopped, the world stopped. I had to figure out how I was going to live the next, in the next week. Fortunately, my gay friends from the drama club all helped and pulled together. And we found a little basement apartment not too far away from school. And I used my prom money to pay the down payment on my first month's rent. Got a job at McDonald's. I was there part time, but they moved me up to full time, so I was able to survive. But it was more important for me to be out and proud and gay than to be closeted and ashamed of who I was. So, so then I caused a rift in my family, because it was like, I'm just not going to live in silence. I always believed that for me, it was more important to step in truth than to hide behind, fears of what people would
Correct.
think and how people would treat you. Because, that week was that 7 days was like torture. I mean, at one point, my father said to me, if I had a gun, I would shoot you. And I just remember, you could have made all of, and this is what my boyfriend at the time said. He said, you didn't have to do any of that. You could have kept your mouth closed. You could have gone to the prom, and we could have still hooked up, and da 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 da. But you had to go tell him you was gay. And I was like, for me, there was no choice. It was, for me, it wasn't like, oh, do I stay in the closet or do I? No, I'm gonna.
Right.
So I made that choice, and those were the kinds of choices I made, because throughout the rest of my life, as a result of that moment, because that moment taught me that it was more important for me to go through the sacrifices and appreciate
Mm-hmm.
my being truthful. Because as I tell friends, and I speak to youth audiences all around the country, I speak at a lot of gay pride keynote events. I said, I never had to show up at Thanksgiving or Christmas with a roommate or a buddy and
Exactly.
lie and then wait for Aunt so and so or Uncle so and so to go. And I was like, no, I'm bringing my partner, and this is who he is. And, because your lies. If you keep compounding lies, you have to keep creating stories around
You
them,
do. You
and
do.
that just gets
Absolutely.
so convoluted for me. So it's hard enough to memorize lines and be an actor, but I can't just memorize a whole scene and then play it to a family. It's like, no, you gonna take this as I give it to you, which is the truth. And 95% of family and friends would just kind of go like, oh, okay. It's not it, it's not as well for me, because I know other people I've seen what other families have done to youth. But
Hmm.
for me, it was after I went through that big fire with my father, I never experienced it anymore with any other family member. It was like, shh, it's like, oh, leave him alone. He got his partner, he doing his due. And then one of the things my mom
Right.
said that I'll never forget, she had a sister that said to her, um, Love's son, my mother's name is Loveline, and they call her Miss Love. So, Love's sons is funny like that. And my mother said, but my sons have never been in jail, and my sons have never been shot. And you got dead children, and you got children in jail, but my sons have never made me ashamed of them a day in their life.
Ooh,
Very powerful. Very powerful.
she was a trailblazer. She was a trailblazer.
No,
Did
you're fine.
you and
Go
your
on.
dad eventually make amends, or did he eventually come around?
So we had a turbulent on and off relationship over the years. And we were so much alike. We were both very fire driven Aries. I was born the 22nd of March. He was born the 30th of March. Um, and I was the one most like him in tone and behavior. So for many years, I didn't even appreciate God's gift of my voice, because it sounded so much like my father's. And the sound of his voice really irritated me. I remember when I became a QVC host, he bought an additional television set that he kept on QVC at all times to see me on television, which I found out later. Um, when I got married to a woman in the 80s, because that's a whole different story in the AIDS crisis, I married a woman running away from the gay life for like 2 or 3 years. He would call her up and tell her, well, you know, he's gay. Why are you with him? Why are you with him? Why are you with him? So it was like, so we would have that kind of drama. And then
Ooh.
one day I found out he was an activist. He was like fighting drug dealers in the Baltimore community. So then we were put together doing activism together. And then we got into a fight and then we stopped speaking. And then he passed away in 2006. And we hadn't spoken in probably about 10 years. But it was an on and off. He was a difficult man. But as we learn, pain people hurt other people.
Sure.
You know,
Some of us know the importance of embracing our queer youth, and showing them that there is life outside of the hatred that you see, right?
absolutely.
So, what or how did you become interested in education, and what was maybe like that first initial moment where you said, okay, I have to do this, I have to stand up, I have to say something?
So, um, in a nutshell, when I didn't go to college right out of 1976, and I got a job, I started working in the community and I started doing community theater. I ended up in an educational theater company in Baltimore. It was called BCAB, Baltimore Council of Adolescent Pregnancy and Pregnancy Prevention. And we would
Mm-hmm.
do these little skits in schools that would show the risk of unplanned pregnancies. So the actors and I, we were tired of the management trying to preach abstinence, and we were trying to preach safer sex practicing. You know, the
Mm-hmm.
use of condoms, and it wasn't about not having sex; it was about, you know, the use of making better decisions. So we
Mm-hmm.
decided that we created an offshoot, and we created our own independent theater company, which addressed substance abuse, AIDS awareness, domestic violence, as well as that. And so that launched me into a world of educational theater.
Mm-hmm.
So from 1980 all the way through the 2000s, I spent the bulk of my years doing educational theater. So in that, that's when I actually started doing African storytelling. But when
Mm-hmm.
I landed in Los Angeles, I landed here in the middle of an actor strike. So I ended up doing a lot of temp work. And I ended up at Paramount Pictures for 2 years doing temp work. And when the temp job ended, I kept saying, what am I going to do with my life next? So
Right.
I said, I never got a chance to go to college. And and I know this sounds really silly, but I had done some extra work on the Parkers with Monique,
Mm-hmm.
and her character, her fictional character, went to Santa Monica College, and I
Right.
was like, I'm gonna go to Santa Monica College, and it was like right up the street, so I did, and I loved being in school. I sat at the front of the class, and the teacher was like, you know, I was like 47 years old, something like that, and when you go to college as an adult, you have such a greater appreciation for it. So all the other kids were younger than me, and the teachers would kind of go, he's here because he wants something out of this. So I ended up becoming a teacher's assistant, and they were always empowering me to learn more. So
Mm-hmm.
one day I took an exam at the guidance counselor's office to figure out what career choice should be next. Because I kept
Mm-hmm.
saying, this acting thing ain't working out. I'm not getting the roles I want to get. I'm an out gay actor. They're only offering me drag queen roles or super effeminate roles. And in the early 2000s, they didn't really have that down in terms of casting it and giving you rich roles. So
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
and then I was just getting stuck with a whole lot of background work, and I was just doing survival work basically.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went through the list after you took the exam, and I went through the top 10 things, I had literally done everything except teach. And so I said, oh, I can make this work. I can, you know, because for me, it was all about how do I make the arts work in an educational way to
Mm-hmm.
impact youth. So
Yeah.
I decided to enroll in a master's program for education, all the while constructing my memoir around all of the artistic things I had done, all the activism things I had done, how I used the arts to educate activism, how the
Mm-hmm.
arts to educate on substance abuse, the arts to educate on AIDS awareness. So a lot of my life, which was I was able to document and get college credit for. So that just was inspiring. So by the time I graduated with my master's degree in education in 2010, I was volunteering at the Los Angeles LGBT Center as a mentor. And someone saw me do a youth workshop and offered me a job to be a program coordinator in their health department.
Okay.
And that's where I really got to do the bulk of inspiring youth. And that led to me being able to speak. At that time, I'd already self published my memoirs, so people knew something about me. So I would be invited to sell my book and then give a keynote address. But because what I had gone through in life, I thought would impact and help inspire other youth to understand that just being gay isn't when your parents drop you off on Santa Monica Boulevard and say, I don't want to have anything else to do with you. Because
Okay.
I survived that, they could survive that. It's stuff that was for me. And I said, you know what, the time will be right when the right roles will come, or the right agent will come, or people will see me. But in the meantime, I can still make use of God's gift through using my art as an educational tool.
Educator. Absolutely.
Yes, yes.
Realm. What are some of the highlights and achievements from your career as an educator?
A big bulk of the highlight was when I managed. When I remember I told you about the educational company and we started doing other things. Well, then I offshoot from that educational company and I decided to do African storytelling. So
Okay.
I had had a part-time job working for the Children's Theater Association. And this young lady who I went to high school with, she had just graduated from college, and she said, you know, you shouldn't be working for the white man telling, you know, Aladdin tales and Three Little Bears. She says, we should do Black stories. And so,
Yeah.
you know, she came up with this concept. It was called Umoja Sasa Storytellers, and it translates to Unity Now. And she says,
Okay.
we'll take African American stories and we will take the model that the white people are doing, and we will go to all the schools and we'll start booking our stories, and then all the money will come to us instead of us working for them. You know,
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
during Black History Month, we can
Mhm.
work year round and market and promote ourselves. So I was a self-taught costumer, so I made all these beautiful African garments. And we had a pipe and drape with a hand-drawn map of Africa. And we put a pipe and drape up, brought in our bags, got some drums, got some musical instruments, and we started telling children's stories. What we would do is I would write lesson plans and we would give them to the teachers. So then we would teach them Kiswahili words, and then we would, tell them about the morals, and we would teach them origin stories. And then, then we would tell them, then we would slip in our slave stories, whereas
Okay.
you'd be in a school and white people would be uncomfortable, like saying, and then we would do moments of this is what slave traders did to Black people. And, you had children like this, and you have teachers going like, I don't know whether he should have told them. And it's like, well, that's what happened, girl. You need to sit back and learn.
Right.
But through the process of doing that, a few years later, when I auditioned in a national search for a QVC fashion channel host, I auditioned using African garments that I had made.
Okay.
But I also was making little doll replicas of the costumes that I made when I was performing. I took those dolls to the producers at QVC and I said, you do Irish shows and Silver Hills or Dakota shows and all of these other shows, but you don't do any shows targeting Black people. Why
Mhm.
don't you let me host a show where we can bring in soapstone and mudcloth and kente and, and then show your QVC audience that you're diverse? Well, they were like, oh, great, we'll do it during Black History Month. So, of course, that's when we launched it, because that's the only
Mhm.
time white people see us. So when we launched it, I mean, the show made over $1 million.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
it hurtled me into a kind of a niche stratosphere. I couldn't walk into like a Sears or J.C. Penney without some little old lady saying, that's Dale Madison. I saw him on QVC and I bought one of his dolls.
Yeah.
And then I was invited to appear at Black Expo shows, because during the 90s, we were very, very African. We had Spike Lee, we had Do the Right Thing, and we had
Mhm.
Black Expo shows. So for me, the height of it all, the height of the popularity, all of that, the fame, happened in the 90s, going to Black Expo shows, being on QVC, launching a line of handmade dolls that I had made myself. That kind of showed me what it could be like, using how I used education and art and then commerce together to create this whole brand for myself that was associated with African culture, Black dolls, as well as and never hiding the fact that I was gay. I was like,
Oh,
there were other gay hosts at QVC, but Dale was the only out gay host, because it's like,
Dale's
I'm just gonna let you know, I don't have to tell you what I do in bed, but I certainly ain't gonna tell you that I'm not gay, you know.
So when did you fall in love with animal print? As I was going through your bio and a couple other things, I saw a lot of animal print. So I'm just curious.
Everybody loves to ask me that question. I even wrote a blog about it. So like I usually just
Okay.
send to people, it's like, if you want to know, this is the story behind it. So one of the things I noticed, and I'd always liked it, to some degree, and I always had it, but
Okay.
I was breaking up with a partner, and we were separating our things in our home. And
Mhm.
and I decided to take the animal print, and then he took the other things. And as I was shopping for my home, I realized every season there's always animal print. That print never goes out of style. And then I'm a huge fan of old black and white movies. Whenever you look at a film noir, whenever there is an interesting, sexy, or devious character, they always have on animal print. So I'm a collector, and then me and my brother were kind of like over collectors. So we tend to, if we find something we like, we just buy a lot of it.
Okay.
So once I started working for the Gay and Lesbian Center, and I had to go out and do HIV prevention and speak to audiences, or I don't know what it's like. Well, I do. I've been to Memphis. Is that sometimes when you're doing outreach, you're at a table at a health fair, and you're begging people to take condoms or to listen to conversations about PrEP, and people just go, "Oh, child, just give me the condom. I don't want to." But one of the things I noticed, if I wore leopard print, people would just go, "Oh, I like that." And I would have them. I would immediately engage people because, as I tell people, I'm a big, black, loud, gay man. And sometimes I can be intimidating to approach. But if you wear leopard print, it makes you less threatening because people immediately connect to something. They'll either like it or they won't. Most of
Okay.
the time, they like it, or most of the time, they're curious. But what happens is it helps me to form instant engagement. So from that
Mhm.
day forward, from 2012, I wore leopard print every day because I found that when I would go to places to speak, or if I'd have to be sitting behind a table, people would come to me first because they wanted to make a comment about what I had on.
Okay.
mm-hmm.
So it just became the safe way of making people understand that I'm approachable. Because sometimes we as black men and black gay men, sometimes people are a little scared of us. And it's so interesting. I was in a grocery store at Ralph's. I had on a leopard outfit from head to toe, and there was this rough thug, and he was with his girl, and he was like, "Man, I just have to tell you that outfit is bomb." And he wouldn't have did that. He wouldn't have did
Right.
that if I didn't have that leopard print on. He wouldn't have
Mm-hmm.
felt comfortable enough
Comfortable.
to approach a gay man just
Absolutely.
to make a comment because it somehow makes you more accessible. So I just have fun with it now. My whole house is decorated in leopard print, the bathroom, the sheets, the cars, everything.
Well,
And
you wear it well. Let me say that.
thank you. And it was good luck for me because I wore it on Jay Leno's You Bet Your Life, and I won.
Mhm. Okay.
I wore it on. I auditioned for Doritos National Super Bowl commercial last year, and
Mhm.
they said, "You've been cast, but you have to wear your leopard print outfit." So I get to be in a national Dorito Super Bowl commercial in my own leopard print outfit. No, I'm never giving up leopard. No, never.
Right.
And it never
You
goes out of style. That's the whole thing. Certain things will date
True.
itself, but leopard
yeah.
print you can find all the way back, and then you'll just continue to see it.
My
True.
life in three easy payments, right? There was a quote that you gave, and it was never let success go to your head and never let failure get to your heart. And there was a piece that you said after that, be ready to give your marketable what? And I want you to
Oh,
expand on this for me.
but are you willing to sell your marketable soul? Are you
Are
willing to
you
sell your
willing to
soul?
tell
Yeah.
what was the meaning behind that, Dale?
Um, the meaning behind it is stand in your truth.
Yeah.
Sometimes we do things to be able to get that fame and success. And then you find out later that you got the fame and success, but then you've lost all the love and the respect along the way.
Mm.
So, My Life in Three Easy Payments is an offshoot of my memoir. My memoir that I self published in 2010 is called Dream Boy: My Life as a QVC Host and Other Greatest Hits. It's
Mhm.
loosely inspired from Mary Wilson's book, Dream Girl: My Life as a Supreme,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm an obsessive Diana Ross Supremes fan. So, one of the marketing tools that I used to launch my career as a speaker was I wrote a one man show based off of my book to use the show to educate audiences on my journey as an actor, as an activist, as a drag queen, as a anything. Um, so during the pandemic, I sat down with some writer friends of mine. And I was like, let's turn this into a television pilot and then let's pitch it during the pandemic. And so our tagline was just that. So Kenan was referring to the little 1 minute teaser promo that we created when we were pitching the one man the television show, because it's a fictional story. It's loosely based on my life, but it's about three friends who live in Baltimore. One of them is a shopping channel host. One of them owns a club, and the other one works for a television channel. But the two of them went to college, and then the one of them who's played by who's me did not go to college, and so he feels insecure. And so for him, he thinks fame and success will be being on television, which is what I thought back in the '90s. But what we
Mhm.
learn in it is that the character would do anything to be able to achieve fame, but really what he wants is he wants to satisfy his soul, and it's just a reminder: don't sell your soul, you know, along the way. So it's me relearning the journey, if that makes any
Mhm.
sense.
It does.
And that's why we talk about don't sell your soul, don't sell your marketable soul, because on QVC, all you're doing is marketing. It's like I tell people, it's a glorified Macy's on TV. All you're basically doing, you're just a retail clerk holding up a product and you're engaging audiences to sell it, you know. But at the end of the day, people think it's more because it's on television. But now we
Mhm.
all can be famous in our own blog, in our own conversations on YouTube, on Instagram. We can create any of those things, and you can do those things. Because I mean, I was there at the height of it, but QVC sells more stuff online now than it ever did on live television
Hold
anymore.
on. Mm.
Also,
Going back to QVC and the dolls, right?
Mhm.
So I know that this was an opportunity for it kind of launched. You had a store at some point, right?
I after after I left QVC, I used the
Yes.
vendors that I actually helped get their products on QVC. They sold me products. So when I returned to Baltimore, I actually opened a store using the products associated with the vendors who had provided them for me at QVC. And
Mhm.
that's when I started making African garments for sale. I started a whole line of I had Afrocentric dolls, and then I had Afro erotic dolls. So I had dolls
Okay.
that had penises, dolls I put little beads in there. They had testicles, and they wore little sexy outfits. James Earl Hardy did a reading of B-boy blues in my store when he one of the first places he did a book reading was B-boy, and so I made B-boy blues. I made B what did we call it? What did he call them? A b-boy? I mean b-boy dolls. So they had
Mhm.
on tight jeans and a penis you could see in them. They had on the bib overalls. It was that kind of thing. So I was located in the heart of
Ah.
Baltimore's gay community. So I was
Uh-huh.
able to represent the Afrocentric side of me, but also the gay side of me. And it was a fun 5 years. I rented that storefront for 5 years, and it became the
okay.
heart of the gay community. We had people like Keith Boykin. He did one of his first books, One More River to Cross, was done
Mm-hmm.
in my store. James Earl Hardy, and then different
So,
gay photographers who had erotic art. So posters of
mhm.
black naked gay men. People knew where they could get black gay art. The
Yes.
the, the erotic and the Afrocentric. Because I was trying to tell people I'm all of that. you know. And then
And
you're off,
we
off the, and I know you know what the meat rack is, right?
no.
Educators.
Every town has a meat rack. That's the area you go if you want to pick up a hustler on the street, a sex worker.
Okay.
Oh, okay.